Hi everyone, welcome to this class. So we're going to paint this bunny rabbit. And here is my test piece, and actually it's not the first one because I have painted this bunny rabbit over a year ago, and that was before I was recording classes for Patreon. So before we only had voiceover tutorials, and so I do have this bunny rabbit as a voiceover tutorial. I just haven't actually posted it, but I decided to redo it because I wanted to make the instructions more clear, and I just wanted it to be a class, not just a tutorial with a voiceover. This is something I just did right before I sketched this one. What works for me is actually using undertones, and then you add the colors like on top of that. And here with this bunny rabbit we have spots, and for that I use like rust sienna, yellow ochre. Actually, let's talk about the colors. I do have these colors here, and this is a pretty simple color palette. These are colors that I normally paint with anyway. So yellow ochre, rust sienna. You can just choose one of these. And then I have the primary yellow, which is imidazolone yellow. Then I have burnt sienna for my brown, and then Van Dyke brown, which is like sepia basically, and then cobalt blue as my blue. But you could go with a primary blue like a phthalo blue red sheet too. And then if I want to use like a darker blue, which I will for the eye for sure, but maybe some area over the ears or something, then I would use a little bit of indigo. And then quin red. I always add quin red to rust sienna, yellow ochre, my yellow, just to change the shade of those yellows, for example. So here again is the my number 2 rabbit. So we're just gonna wet it and wet it until it feels like the paper is pretty wet over the rabbit. Just a little bit, plus a little bit of the background, that's all. I'm going to start with some of this actually blue violet. So this is my quin red and cobalt blue. The paint dried a little bit because it took me a while to get to this point. But this is kind of like one of the areas where I want to have some bluish undertone. So what I'm grabbing is more like between water milk-like ratio. But I do want some of this blue violet in here because I just like how it dried in my other versions. So that's pretty good. I'm gonna clean this brush. Now I have some of these undertones, but I need more quin red, and these are like the patchy areas overall. So it's the same ratio between water and paint. It's more like a milk-like ratio, I'd say. And I'm gonna add it towards like a little darker areas, like over here and here, maybe some over here, small patches. And so you can go back to the same areas, retouch them. Just because you place the color somewhere doesn't mean that you have to leave the area alone. You can go back and polish it. And nicely polish it. This is the area where I had blue violet. And I added a little bit of that yellow in there, so it kind of feels like actually the color that I see in the reference. It's not exactly what I want to do, so I can go back and I'm just going to add a little more. This Van Dyke brown, maybe some of the burnt sienna too. So burnt sienna, I didn't clean my brush. And there's my Van Dyke brown. So burnt sienna, Van Dyke brown, and quin red too now. So this is more reddish, right? Because I grabbed some of the quin red. And over here as well. And at the same time, paper is drying. So we have to think about lifting colors too. So I waited a minute, and now I'm ready to go back and see if I can start lifting. The one important area for me to lift is actually to shape that ear. So this is a damp brush, and as you see, I'm going kind of around it just to shape that ear. And then the same thing I need to do here. So I waited a minute, and actually it's much better now. Right, and here's something like that. Actually, I misshaped because it should be a little different, but it's all right. We can tell it's the ear, right? And then here, just a little bit lifting, and then over here. So this is my Songbird 2, but it's the wooden handle one. So this is the other one that I like to use for the hair. So one of the things you can do is grab this cream top-like ratio between water and paint. Now this is too dry. So this is the Van Dyke brown, some of the corn red, and let's see some of the burnt sienna, right? Actually, it wouldn't hurt to grab blue violet. So this is like a cream top. And you can go back to the damp areas and just add a little more hair if you want to. Now this, sometimes it's easy to overdo this, so I would be very careful. It's just some areas if you want to add more of that hair. So like maybe here or maybe over here. Now, what's the next step? I want to start working on the eye, which means I'm going to zoom in so you can see all of this, but also I'm going to zoom in onto the reference image so I can see what's like inside of that eye. Eyes, noses, those are like the only things I really focus on when it comes down to details. And there's just different approach, I guess, to it, but I do like when eyes look realistic. And I do have a class on Patreon about how to paint a cat's nose and a cat's eye. If you need something more detailed, a separate class. It's just focus on those two elements. And I also have a course in my Teachable school and in my newest school, mariaraczynska.com, a course about painting 6 different animals' eyes. So if you just need more help, let me know and I'm happy to direct you there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to wet the entire eye, and then we're going to think of the lightest colors we see first, and those are usually the colors of the highlight. So the highlights that we see are the reflections in the eye. So I see a little bit of blue in there, and that's where I'm gonna use maybe phthalo blue, maybe cobalt blue, since I've been already using cobalt blue. It's totally up to you. And then I'm gonna start adding a little bit of brown, like burnt sienna on the bottom, a little bit of the iris. And the pupil, like, it doesn't matter really at this point. We can worry about it later with that second layer. So for now, I'm going to zoom in, and I'm holding a round brush size 2, and I'm going to start wetting the eye. Now I have a little something here, so I'm just going to actually get it out first. And now I'm going to wet it. So sometimes I wet the lids too, but here on the bottom of this lid, I have a little highlight, so I guess I'm going to stay away from it. And then whatever I can feel like a little bit of that blue, but I need more like a heavy cream-like ratio, so I don't want the paint to spread too much. And I don't have to place it like everywhere. You always want to choose where you want to place the color. I just grab a little more of that phthalo blue. Actually, I also grabbed some cobalt blue, just FYI, and just kind of find areas where to place it. So now let's work on adding second layer towards the face, the head. So what I'm going to do is grab my long quill size 2 brush, and this time I'm going to avoid the eye, wetting the eye. I don't need to wet more than maybe up to here. And where am I really going to focus on applying colors? It's all mostly over here, and this is actually optional because I like the way it is already. I just want a little edge here, for example, just to show that this is the end of this bunny rabbit's face. So I'm just gonna go along these sketch lines. So this is with an addition of tiny bit of burnt sienna as well. This is the second layer, and why second layer? Really, you don't have to add that second layer. It depends how happy you are with the outcome after the first layer. Because I think my first original version of this bunny rabbit was with just 1 layer only. And then grab the same colors, which is raw sienna. This is raw sienna, corn red, some yellow ochre, and just with the tip of my brush right there. But you know what, I need like a heavy cream-like ratio between water and paint, and just a little bit of it, not too much, and it needs to be a little more like reddish, I'd say, something like that. A little tiny more paint on this side, and this way I'm giving it like the edge. Here you go. So this is the same situation. I'm going to zoom in onto the reference so I can see the whole thing. Now it's not actually exactly the same situation. What we need to do is when we wet the eyeball, we wet everything but that highlight. So we can do it now even though the face is drying because the lid is dry. And so what I usually do is just wet up to that highlight so I don't lose it, because it's very easy to kind of go over it and lose it. But now I want to grab some of this Van Dyke Brown Burnt Sienna. I'm going to start with the lightest colors, which is like on the bottom here. Those are the colors of the iris. So just like the bottom in a way, and then in a second, that's when I'm going to start adding the darkest parts. Like this is when I like to use indigo and Van Dyke Brown, but you can use other colors, of course. But here, this is the bottom. So you want to grab more of that heavy cream or cream top like ratio between water and paint of the indigo Van Dyke Brown, and then just to add that cream top on the bottom, which is like that line. Even this is all in the same kind of journal, the same size. This bunny rabbit is much smaller compared to this one. I enjoyed this one much more because I just had way more room to work on, I don't know, the ears and so on. Like you have more room for the flow to happen, for the effects to take place here. So I don't want to touch the eye area because I literally just finished painting it. I do have masking there, which is so tempting to remove it, but I can't do it yet because the area is just too, probably, it might be already dry, but I don't want to risk it. And that's it for this class. I finished the bunny rabbit, and I'm gonna take photos of my other versions so you can compare it all together. But you just want to keep it light. There's really no need to add more to the back of it unless you want to have kind of this look. Well, I'd say this is a personal preference, like how full you want it, right? And you can paint like 3 of these bunnies and then just decide which one you like better. So thank you so much for your time, and please let me know if you have any questions.